Today is February 19th. It's 8:02 a.m. And this morning from the committee, we have myself, Deputy Mayor Ben Winograd, and Council Member Alberto Cortez. We also have our town manager, Rick Ledwith, Greg Summer, town engineer, Dwayne Martin, director of community development, Kristen Gorski, our economic development coordinator, Todd DeMay, the town planner, Parker Sorensen, who an engineer for the town, and missing James Brennan, who also in engineering for the town. Oh, and it looks like Mayor Cantor just joined us as well. Is that everyone on the call?
Yep.
Okay. So the first item of business is to approve the minutes for the January 15th, 2025 meeting. Are there any corrections that need to be made to those minutes before? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we have a pretty busy schedule this morning, so I just want to get right into it. We're going to go to item. Are we going in order?
We can, Madam Chair. Yes. Thank you.
To item B, the Complete Streets Annual Report. And I'm going to turn it back to our town manager, Rick Ledwith.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone. It is that time of the year, just about every February. We present a annual Complete Streets Report. And the goal of our Complete Streets policy is to ensure that our roads complement and enhance the surrounding land use and accommodate all users, drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, people taking public transportation. And this report that's before you tracks our progress towards meeting that goal. And through you, Madam Chair, I will turn things over to our Assistant Town Engineer, Jim Brennan. And Jim is going to give us a summary of the report. And then we can turn it back to the committee for questions. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Brennan.
All right, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, let me share my screen here. Gerarda, can you make my content shareable? There we go. Thank you. All right, there we go. All right, again, good morning. Jim Brennan, Assistant Town Engineer. So today we're going to talk about the, as Rick said, the Complete Streets Report for 2024. I'm going to touch on some of our signature achievements and some of the other improvements that we did. And then happy to take any questions. So jumping right in, we spent just over $2.5 million this year in Complete Streets improvements. The two big line items there are sidewalks and then multi-use trail. We had a number of other improvements around town, as you can see, ranging from RFBs to bike route striping and street trees. Breakdown of our expenditures here on the right. We are now showing our grant funds that we're using to assist in our Complete Streets goals. So we expect, in the coming years to see a lot more grant funding. But as that grant funding wanes in the future, we may see a dip for year-over-year spending. But just wanted to be able to show that. Jumping right into one of our big achievements this year was the complete overhaul and revision of the bike facility plan, which is now known as the Bicycle Plan and Facility Selection and Design Guide. We also updated the bicycle network map in conjunction with our partners, FHI Studio. So this gives us a foundation to continue to build our bike facilities out around town. We continue to add a number of miles of bike lanes this year. We added to our bike routes, and then of course multi-use trail. Some of our more prominent bike lanes that we completed this year was Boulevard from Mountain Road all the way to South Main Street. And then we completed Webster Hill Boulevard. There was a section missing bike lanes in front of the school. So we've now completed that facility, which will take you from South Main Street all the way to Mayflower Street and then down to New Britain Avenue. And then our other signature achievement this year was the completion of Trout Brook Trail. The piece we completed this year was known as Phase 3, extended from Park Road down to Jackson Avenue. That's about 3/4 of a mile. So again, this completes Trout Brook Trail as it was initially envisioned in the plan of conservation development. It's a wonderful facility that the community has immediately began using even before we were completed. Often difficult to keep people off when the crews were still out there. So definitely a signature achievement, as I said. Not that we're done with multi-use trails. We are actively working with the developers at 1800 Asylum to extend the trail through that parcel to the north. We also have an active grant to look at trail connections to the south and east in the future, working with Newington and possibly Hartford as well. Moving along to some of our other achievements, other improvements. Like I said, we continue to plant street trees around town. We made traffic signal improvements by way of APS button installations at a number of locations, making those signals more accessible. In our traffic calming program, we notably added 3 raised crosswalks around town. I know Parker may touch on that a little bit more in the Vision Zero report. In conjunction with that, we added RFBs at those locations, adding 11 RFBs around town, in addition to our standard crosswalk restriping or adding crosswalks at other locations. And so the last physical part of the report or physical achievements was, again, our sidewalks. We installed or replaced over 3 miles of sidewalks this year, repaired another 750 or so locations with our saw cut program, where we're actually saw cutting tow trips between 2 otherwise good condition slabs. So that's a program where we're able to get in there quickly, make a repair, and then not have to replace those slabs. So we continue to chip away at our backlog here. We do have just under 900 outstanding sidewalk requests once you've subtracted the ones that we completed this year, but of course we took on some new requests as well. So continue making progress in that department. And the last thing I'll touch on is vulnerable user crashes. There's some good news here, but unfortunately some bad news. Obviously, we're aware there were 3 fatalities this year. Don't want to, excuse me. The number of crashes did decrease from last year, but again, the 3 fatalities, and then we had 6 suspected serious crashes as well. So fortunately, that was a bit of a trend that we need to work on reversing. And obviously, Parker is going to touch on that more again in the Vision Zero report. Shown here also is a heat map of where crashes occurred. Just note that some of the crashes may not be on there if they're not in the crash repository yet. Touching on some of the behaviors, I think drivers were responsible for at least 14 of the crashes. A couple of them, they were operating too fast for conditions, whether it was in snow or ice. We had a mini motorcycle driving down a sidewalk without brakes that hit a pedestrian. And there was a number of instances where somebody was backing unsafely out of a driveway across the sidewalk. Pedestrians were also had some contributing behaviors in a number of the crashes, including being under the influence or crossing outside of a crosswalk or against a red signal when a signal or crosswalk was provided nearby. We even had one person that was walking down the middle of the travel lane with their back to traffic on the Britain Avenue near the mall. So certainly a number of educational and behavioral things that we need to work on as a collective town. Anyways, that concludes the report. Happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you for your report. And are there any questions from anyone on the committee? No? Okay. Are there, Deputy Mayor Winograd?
Just sort of procedural. I know we have a lot of this in the Vision Zero plan. So I'm just wondering how we like I have a question that probably applies more to Vision Zero, but is there any thought about how we either combine these plans or make them avoid duplication? It's a little confusing just because, you know, we're reading each of them and I'm like, well, why doesn't that one belong in the other one? And I just, what are your thoughts on that?
Through you, Madam Chairperson. So we did discuss that. That was certainly something that came up when we were preparing these reports. There is a lot of overlap. So for next year, we may look to combine them or reduce the amount of information in this report to avoid that overlap. I definitely try to pare it down a little bit this year and keep it a little simpler, knowing that a lot of the information is going to be covered in the Vision Zero report.
Thank you, and I appreciate the report. I'm not complaining through you, Madam Chair. I'm just, you know, want to
understood
be efficient as to where my questions are and
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to Deputy Mayor Winograd's question. It's a great question, and as Jim had said, it was something we did discuss internally. You know, we've been doing our Complete Streets annual report since 2015, I believe, if I have the date correctly. We're about to present our Vision Zero annual report as well, and we did look even this year, and Jim mentioned we'll take a closer look for next year on how we could possibly integrate these two reports. And there's some information that would transfer over, you know, fine between the two reports, but there's also a lot more meat to what we're trying to address with the Vision Zero plan. So we'll take another look at it and the possibility of combining them. But yeah, why don't we'll get through the Vision Zero annual report as well, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about in terms of, you know, the ability to try to combine this information. I know it is a little bit repetitive, but we do have a complete streets policy, and that's what this report highlights. And then, of course, we have our Vision Zero action plan, and our annual report is tied directly to that as well. So we'll take another look at it and see if we can find a way to integrate it smoothly. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair.
Does anyone else, any other council members have questions? I do want to acknowledge that Councilperson Carol Anderson Blanks just joined the call while we were speaking. So again, thank you for the presentation, and without any other questions, are we ready to move on to C?
Sure. And this is, as we just discussed from Deputy Mayor Winograd's question, this is our very first Vision Zero annual report, and it really does mark an important milestone for us in our commitment to eliminating all traffic fatalities and serious injuries on our streets. This report will be the first of many to come. Provides a number of bits of information within the report. It provides a comprehensive overview of crash data for 2024, which, as Mr. Brennan just said in his Complete Streets report, it's very much highlighted within the Vision Zero report as well, was a difficult year in 2024 from different tragedies that continue to occur on our streets. So the report also highlights projects completed this past year. And I think while it reflects important progress, it also serves as a reminder of the work that's still ahead, particularly when you look at the crash data. And overall, achieving Vision Zero requires ongoing collaboration, innovative strategies, and really a shared commitment to safer streets for all. And we will continue to work with you and our residents as we continue to move forward toward a future where traffic deaths are very much a thing of the past. Through you, Madam Chair, I will now turn things over to Parker Sorensen, from our engineering team. Parker has been leading our Vision Zero efforts along with our engineering department. With no further ado, I turn it over to Parker. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Madam Chair. Let me share my screen here. Let's see. Let's see. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here this morning. So as mentioned, our first annual report, about 20 or 25 pages or so. So I know our time is limited. So I will just try to provide a kind of a top level summary and then take any more detailed questions as we go. Just really high level. I think it's easy to forget where we are. We adopted Vision Zero as the town council in early 2024. So we were just really rounding out the first year, but we've had quite a bit of work really since that time. Just 2024 in a snapshot, and we'll get into this in details. Certainly we'll take a look at both the Vision Zero actions and the Vision Zero roadway projects. And then finally, just really want to highlight, as Rick alluded to, Vision Zero is an ongoing collaborative effort. Really thank you. I'm sitting here in the engineering division, prepared this report, but really this represents a holistic effort by multiple departments and really hard efforts from many staff, including staff in planning and zoning, Department of Public Works, Police Department, Fire Department, Board of Ed, and Public Relations. So thank you to all staff that have contributed to Vision Zero efforts in the last year. So as Rick mentioned, 2024 was really a tough year for us in terms of crashes. We saw 3 fatalities on our streets in 2024 on Albany Avenue, Oakwood Avenue, and Sedgwick Road. So really want to highlight those as we move forward through our work in Vision Zero. In addition, we take a look not only at fatalities, but also crashes resulting in serious injuries. There was a 41% increase in serious injuries compared to 2023. So we went from down here 12 to 21. And similarly, in terms of crashes and minor injuries also increased over 2023. So some really sobering numbers for us as we continue our work. We are here on the first year of Vision Zero. So kind of some perspective for us as we continue. I just note too, 2024 numbers, we have asterisks here. They are preliminary, so we expect those, as police reports are finalized and uploaded to the state, that those numbers may be adjusted next year. Some pop-ups here, hold on. Really diving into those crashes resulting in fatality and serious injury. There were 10 crashes resulting in fatality between 2018 and 2024. Many of those were reflected in our Vision Zero action plan. But of course, again, the 3 fatalities, heartbreaking fatalities this year. I really want to highlight, 8 of the 10 crashes were pedestrian fatalities. Really highlighting the need to focus on vulnerable road users, whether they're pedestrians, bicyclists, anyone outside of that kind of protective shell of a vehicle. So 80%, that's really pretty remarkable. Suspected injury, again, we noting suspected injuries had increased, representing 4 pedestrians and 2 cyclists, in addition to the 12 crashes with motor vehicles. So part of our Vision Zero annual report is asked to keep track of kind of a data-driven process of crashes that are more likely to result in serious injury and fatality. We identified 4 types of crashes in the Vision Zero action plan that were overrepresented in those types of crashes, whether they be single vehicle crashes, crashes under the influence with the driver under the influence, crashes at night, or crashes at 4-light two-way stop controlled intersections, all kind of overrepresented in terms of crashes that result in a fatality and serious injury. One thing I think that was certainly top of mind, probably to everyone on this call, was crashes that were occurring at night or at dusk. And just want to highlight here, 9 of the 11 pedestrian fatalities in West Hartford between 2015 and 2024 occurred at night or at dusk. So I certainly think we felt that here in 2024. This graph's a little bit complicated to read, but this is federal data of pedestrian fatalities. So what you're seeing is the time of day along the x-axis here, your month along kind of the y-axis, and then the color or heat map here is on the, I guess, the z-axis, is showing the number of pedestrian fatalities nationwide. The dots are every pedestrian fatality that we've had in West Hartford since 2025. So I plotted this obviously, and I just want to note this really did align with the federal national data, and what's this showing. Pedestrian fatalities really concentrated at night, regardless of the month, but especially here in October, November, December, January, really having a spike in crashes. And I think that's certainly something that we have experienced here in town and want to keep high priority on. Just as what do we do as it relates to that nighttime visibility? I think we'll mention not only what can we do as users on a road to maintain visibility, but also how our roads are engineered and designed. So just an example, Oakwood Avenue, we did a quick change of some luminaires out there right near St. James. This is before a luminaire upgrade and after. So really highlighting really some remarkable improvements just from street lighting changes that can be made. In Oakwood Avenue, we only did maybe a block and a half here just based on the lamps that we had available, but we do expect that to be expanded in 2025. Just really want to touch on this. We are also taking a look and keeping track of how our corridors, each individual corridor is changing with crashes. The goal being, we implement projects and we want to see a decrease in crashes year over year. 3 positive trends I want to note. These are projects that predate Vision Zero, but which crash reductions are just being realized now. North Main Street, of course, we had a road diet in 2021, about a 60% decrease in injury crashes per year. Boulevard west of Main Street, so there's several half closures at Riggs, Newport, 4 Mile Road. I'm sure we're all very familiar with that. There was quite a crash pattern on Boulevard at those intersections. There's been a 72% reduction in injury crashes year over year, and actually 2 of those injury collisions were at Boulevard at Woodrow Street prior to the quick build half closure at Ellsworth Road. And then lastly, Farmington Avenue through the center. In 2020 implemented a road diet and changed the roadway configuration. Since that time, there's been an 88% reduction in injury crashes. So again, projects that predate Vision Zero, but I think can be serve as a positive example for perhaps other areas. Corridors with notable increases in injury crashes, Albany Avenue, New Britain Avenue, both state facilities up 56% and 83% respectively. So this is Albany Avenue, Woodbury Lane to Sequin Road, of course, in the area of the January 2024 pedestrian fatality. Just a note, we did do a road safety audit in this area with DOT, collaborating with DOT, led by DOT in the summer of 2024, and there'll be some recommendations coming out of that plan. Troutbrook Avenue, Oakwood Avenue, and Boulevard all saw increases to injury crashes as well. Just want to highlight some of the projects that we completed. 2024 was a very busy year in terms of projects. 115 Vision Zero projects completed through the year. It could be as big as kind of like a road diet, say on New Britain Ave, down by the Hartford line, or as small as some line striping reconfiguration. So kind of in all the buckets there. Really thank you. I couldn't underscore this enough. This effort really couldn't be done without the tremendous effort and support from the Department of Public Works. Of those 115, they were directly involved with 50 of them either taking the lead or had some contributing work in one way or the other. So just to highlight some of the changes in 2024 that were implemented, 3 new raised crosswalks, as Rick mentioned, on Boulevard, Tungus Road, Fern Street. One of we did a speed study at Boulevard before and after right at the crosswalk, and I'll really just highlight this, a 90% reduction in vehicles traveling over 40 miles an hour at that crosswalk. So when we're talking about reducing risk, especially at a busy crosswalk, school crosswalk, really good results there. 11 new RFPs, the flashing lights at, as you see in this photo, this one's at Sedgwick Road, right in front of the middle school. Again, implementing that, research shows drivers are more than 13 times more likely to stop when this signage is in place at night compared to just a standard crosswalk. Road diet, DOT implemented this on New Britain Ave between South Street and Newington Ave in Hartford, so right up to the Hartford line. This is a picture here from Hartford looking west into West Hartford. But really, if you haven't been down there, this really has changed the character of the roadway, much calmer roadway there. 14 new crosswalks and 17 curves with new pavement markings. So this is an example. This curve previously was unstriped, just adding a double yellow center line through the curve to promote visibility. 23 signal improvements, whether it be accessible pedestrian signals, those the accessible push buttons, signal timing changes, vehicular detection. There's a whole host of kind of improvements that fall under this bucket that really improve the efficiency, reliability, and safety of these intersections. So example here, this is Prospect Ave at Keene Street. DPW worked with DPW to get these online synchronized. You see, both of these are red. Previously, they were uncoordinated. So we had our walk with our police department partners. There was some concern with motorists seeing green and red and running of the intersection there. So that was a quick change that we were able to make within a few weeks after the road safety audit down there. Almost 10 miles of new 6-inch edge line that's wider than the standard 4-inch edge line. So example, Troutbrook Road previously had no edge line. I think that really helps, especially at nighttime in any inclement weather, rain or snow. 5,000 reflective bands distributed, not only the bands, but it provides a touch point to talk with people about Vision Zero concerns, best practices, and really what people can do for Vision Zero in the community. Sightline improvements, and as I also discussed earlier, lighting improvements certainly have already been initiated, and we certainly expect to see that expand in 2025. So here's the full list of the 115. I'm not really going to get into that, but do want to highlight that we do have, I think everyone's probably aware, an interactive map online. So if you really want to dive in deeper, I certainly invite you to visit the Vision Zero website and take a look at that interactive map. So in terms of the Vision Zero action plan, as Rick mentioned, really want to highlight the not only the successes that we're having, but also, be realistic in the things that we have work yet to do. So what you're seeing on the left up here, the bar chart, this is each of the categories in our Vision Zero action plan, from practices, policies, safe design, culture, data. We're doing pretty good in terms of our goals with practices and policies, safe design, data even, especially with this annual report and some of the things that we're publishing on online, and with our projects yet to start, we're feeling pretty good about that. Culture is something that I think we need to keep an eye on as a community. As Jim alluded to, some of this is behavioral and not necessarily using the measures that are out there in a proper manner. So I'll talk about that in the next the next slide here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, with culture, I think initially the thought was we had included funding for a staff position that would have advanced up to 17 of those actions under the fiscal year 2024 Safe Streets for All grant application. I just want to highlight that that was the initial intent, and that was removed by Federal Highway upon review. So I think that leaves us, that really is late fall, early winter, where that removal happened. So I think that leaves us trying to reevaluate how to move those actions forward, potentially partnering with partner organizations from CROG, DOT, Watch from ECT, or adjacent municipalities. A lot of good work occurring in this space. I think we just got to figure out how to unlock that and leverage the connections that we have. Really just want to highlight some of the successes, from creating a line item in the capital improvement budget specific to Vision Zero, about 500,000 annually from 2026 to 2032 is planned. Pursuing grant funding, I'll discuss the SS4A grant opportunities a little bit more in detail. Road safety audits has been a very active task, and that will, again, result in reports, not only with specific recommendations for each of the corridors, but those reports could also be used potentially in the future to support grant opportunities. And, again, highlighting the 115 projects that, might feel smaller, but really add up to have a community impact, really supported by the $1 million in ARPA funding that we had through 2024. So what are we going to expect to move Vision Zero forward here? In terms of projects in 2025, automated traffic enforcement, both speed safety cameras and red light cameras are planned. We have Safe Streets and Road for All grants for both of these types of automated enforcement. And really, Federal Highway research shows that reduces crashes up to 54%. Additional RRBs or crosswalk warning lights, at least 15 additional locations. Street lighting I touched on. Dynamic no turn on red signs at least 4 intersections. So this will come up during the crosswalk phase with a no turn on red sign. Hope to, there's some concerns for right turning traffic, specifically at some of our busier intersections, and really reinforce the fact that they should be stopping for pedestrians. Traffic signal backplates at all of our traffic signals in town through the end of the year. So this is 2 intersections that have already been installed, and Park Road project. That was actually an RSA that was completed in 2024, is moving to design. Really briefly touch on our SS4A grant program. There are 2 separate grants that we have. The first, which is the 2023 grant, which for speed management pilot program. This is really for the speed safety cameras. Just want to highlight, this is fully executed. We've been really in close coordination with Federal Highway. We expect to be able to get this project off the ground here, and fingers crossed, when we go through that first quarter, that all things will be smooth in terms of getting the grant moving forward in terms of financially. Fiscal year 2024, our vulnerable road user safety program. This is where our red light cameras reside, but there's also additional road safety audits, more reports for safety improvements at schools, and then about $3 million to implement both quick build and permanent improvements based on those road safety audits and safe routes to school reports. This is still awaiting grant approval from Federal Highway, so we continue to coordinate with them as we hope to get this last grant off the ground. And finally, I'll leave you with a list of some of the upcoming projects. As I mentioned, some other things in here. Just highlight quick build projects. Certainly, we have 6 categories here. locations to be determined, but we certainly do anticipate that being a part of Vision Zero as we move forward. So that is it. Thank you very much, and I certainly would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does anyone from the committee, oh, I see Town Council Cortez's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't know if this is the appropriate platform for this, but with regards to crosswalks, to me, it's kind of common sense what you do in a crosswalk. But as I'm on the road, in the past month, even a few times I've seen like emergency vehicles, there's pedestrians, on a crosswalk getting ready to go in, and to see emergency vehicles, just not even stop for the pedestrians, leads me to, it's not done in a bad way. They're not in a rush. But I think there's like an education piece. So is there anything more we can do just for that awareness on what to do with a crosswalk? And I know that some laws have changed in the past year or two as far as, when you stop for pedestrians. But when we have emergency personnel that doesn't even understand that, what does that say for the general public itself, like the people that are not aware, especially even with the beacons on North Main by American School of the Deaf, there's times where I have to lean on the horn because the beacons are on and cars continue to, just not allow the pedestrians to come across. And it's like, I haven't seen it improve. So I'm just wondering, is that something that we can kind of focus on with Vision Zero, or is that somewhere else that we would do that?
Do you want me to take, Rick?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Cortez's question and statement. Education is a tremendous part of what we need to be doing. And we've reformed or formed a Vision Zero Advisory Committee, and our focus is on education. So and Parker had mentioned Watch From ECT. It's an organization associated with the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. We've had couple of meetings with them. They have a lot of marketing materials that we can incorporate into our Vision Zero plan, get our logo on there, low-hanging fruit that we can get out there in terms of, what responsibilities do we all have at crosswalks, for example. We're also working on a Vision Zero pledge that we'll be asking all residents to take part in, and that will basically, it's what we all might consider common sense, right? Don't speed. When you hit a red light, stop at the red light. Don't turn right on red when there's a no red right on red. Stay focused. Don't look at your phone. So, and then folks will sign off on that pledge. We have a decal that we've designed with our logo on it that we'll send out to folks that are committed to that pledge. And then we have, in addition to the armbands that we did last year, we'll be doing vests this year, so a little bit more visible. But essentially, what are our, to your point, anytime we come to a crosswalk or a rapid flashing beacon light, what is our responsibility at that light as a driver? That we will be working on that over the next several weeks and getting that campaign out there, and then keeping that going throughout the year with different messages to continue that push of what we all consider sometimes common sense, but folks clearly aren't obeying traffic laws around town. Parker, anything you want to add to that?
Only to say, I think especially as we get like more of these crosswalk warning lights, those RFBs, just to say there might be engineering measures, whether it be those warning lights, the dynamic no turn on red signs, education just on how to use some of the items that people are going to be seeing out in the community on an increasing basis. So.
Thank you for that.
Deputy Mayor Winograd, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you.
and through you. I think it's inevitable with a report like this that you get the what about. So a lot of great stuff in here that I really appreciate, especially the right turn on red flat interactive signs. Maybe that'll keep me from yelling or staring at people at Troutbrook and Farmington, which is almost a weekly routine as I walk by and see people taking that right turn right in front of you, trying to walk across. So again, lots of great stuff in here. Really appreciate the report. But the what about is I'll bring up a couple things I don't see in here that I know have been talked about, and I just want to give you a chance to address. And one is I know the raised crosswalks. I don't know if that's covered under the general calming thing, but certainly the ones we have been so popular. I know there's a lot of push for more. And I didn't see that line itemed in the report. If you could address that. And the other one that just has come up has been the green paint for bike lanes. And I thought we had I had heard some discussion of that. I thought that was being favorably looked at. Again, maybe it's included in other stuff. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on those two things. Thanks.
So thank you, Deputy Mayor Winograd, through you, Madam Chair. So let's start with the green paint. So we're working through our capital improvement program right now as we go through our budgeting process, and within our CIP request for the upcoming year, we do have plans to add green paint to our certain bike lanes around town. It is, and I can turn things over to Dwayne. He can talk a little bit more about the cost. It's not cheap, so it's not like we can go out there and paint all of our lanes right now. So we'll be starting at certain areas in town. Certainly the exclusive bike lanes that we'll have on New Park Avenue will be a great place to start with that green paint right there. And then as we're getting closer to certain intersections, we'll add it at those throughout town as well. Regarding the raised crosswalks, yes, we love them. And they've been a great hit around town with the 3 that we've done on Tunxus Boulevard and Fern. And we will be adding several more of those during the upcoming construction year, and continue to build on that as we move through the next couple of years. Yeah, they've been, as Parker pointed out with the data on Boulevard, they work. And we will be adding several more this upcoming year as well. Dwayne, you want to address the green paint?
Sure. Dwayne Martin, Director of Community Development. I actually don't know off the top of my head the cost. I just know that in conversations with Greg Summer, the town engineer, that it is challenging to pay for the green paint. So if it's okay, I'd like to hand it off to Greg to give us an understanding of the cost. And I think in talking to Greg, he indicated that if we go forward with green paint through our capital improvement program, may actually mean that we have to sacrifice other infrastructure projects due to the cost. And also keep in mind the maintenance of upkeep once it's painted. We want to do that. But I believe we are committed through a grant project for New Park Avenue, as you mentioned. That may even be the first location. But with your permission, I'd like to hand it off to Greg to answer the green paint cost question. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, everyone. Greg Summer, West Hartford Town Engineer. So the green paint is a rather expensive line item. It's $12 per square foot. So significantly higher than a lot more of our other pavement markings that we do through our contractor. So the thought is to try and as Town Manager Ludwig had pointed out, really key in on some of those critical locations. Think about areas where a bike lane may cross over a right turn lane. So I'm thinking about areas like on Boulevard near Troutbrook, Asylum near North Main Street, where we have those potential conflict points. Adding green paint in those locations will be helpful to really add a little bit more awareness for both cyclists and the motorists that there's a potential mixing zone or conflict zone there. Those will be the areas we'll try and address first. And then, depending on the funding allocation, we'll see how far we can get with that allocation of green paint, and then continue to evaluate it. That's one of the concerns, as Mr. Martin had mentioned, is how do we maintain this going forward long term, and how long will that paint hold up in a useful state? So all things that we'll be looking at in the coming year.
Okay, okay, I see Counselor Blanks has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, and thank you for the report. Very extensive. And as I was reading through it, I was very happy and pleased to see how detailed you made it. I do have a couple of questions, and one of the questions is a clarifying question in terms of what's scheduled for 2025. So 3 particular intersections I didn't see on the report, I guess clarifying information. One, starting with Boulevard at South Quaker Lane, when crossing over that 4-way intersection. So right now there isn't any kind of pedestrian signal. It's very challenging to cross over. I walk that route quite often and always feel like I'm taking my own life in my hands. And one time I almost got hit because somebody wasn't even paying attention. So let's start there. And then I have 2 others along the South Quaker Lane corridor. And again, through you, Madam Chair.
Greg, you want to handle that question?
Yeah, happy to respond to that. So Quaker at Boulevard is an intersection that we do have planned upgrades to provide the accessible pedestrian signal equipment. So this is one where, as you mentioned, we don't even have pedestrian signals that give you the walk and the flashing don't walk signs. So those will be incorporated along with the push buttons with the audible message to say wait, or that the walk signal is on. So that's coming currently in the awarding phase of that project, and hopefully within the next several months here, we'll have that equipment installed at that intersection.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And through you, Madam Chair, also the other 2 intersections along South Quaker Lane would be at Talcott and St. Charles. Now, I know at St. Charles there's already signage there, but it appears to be for the students when walking. And as I just stated, so I walk along South Quaker Lane quite often. So usually when I'm on one side or the other trying to cross over, the cars don't seem to pay attention to when the pedestrian is in that crosswalk. They just sort of whip right by. So I'm wondering if we have any upgrades planned for that. And as well as South Quaker at Talcott, that intersection where folks are usually coming through. Either they're making the right onto South Quaker or they're making the left onto Talcott.
Yes, both good questions and intersections. So the one on St. Charles, I'll take that one first. We did look at some potential locations where we might look at doing some quick builds, possibly some bump outs. I think that might be one of the locations that we were eyeing. So the thought would be maybe through paint or some raised delineators, kind of demonstrate that potentially could work in that location, and then depending on the successfulness of it, we could look at making that some type of a permanent improvement. With Quaker Lane South at Talcott, I know that there is one leg of the crosswalk that wasn't painted last year, so we do have that on our list of spring marks to be refreshed and installed following that resurfacing. But that's one we'll take a closer look at. Beyond the crosswalk, I don't have any immediate plans at this point, but it's certainly something that I appreciate bringing that to our attention. We can take a look at further.
Thank you. And one final question through you, Madam Chair, is messaging through social media. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I do see a lot of young people, mature, but more young people that seem to cross against the red and in all areas of town. So is there anything that we could possibly do in terms of messaging through social media?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Blank's question, yes, and we will be taking full advantage of our social media platforms to get our strategy out there to as everyone as we possibly can, and through every modal possible, whether it's print, digital, social media. We'll be taking advantage of all the platforms.
Thank you. I'm all set, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there any other questions from council members? Okay, seeing none. Just wanted to say thank you so much for this presentation. I think it's sometimes easy when things are spread around town. It's good to have all this in one document for us to see the things that we have done, the things that we still do, that we still need to do. So thank you so much. And are there any other comments on the visions? Oh, Dwayne.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. Dwayne Martin, Director of Community Development. Just want to say thank you to my staff for all the work they've done and other town departments and divisions for the work they've done over the past year. Both of those reports, the Vision Zero annual report and the Complete Streets annual report, will be posted on the engineering webpage. We wanted to do the presentations here first, but in the event that the public is interested, or anybody for that matter is interested in it, they will be posted for public viewing. But I also want to go on the record. I know there's been some confusion with regards to the town's support of traffic calming, whether it's bump outs, whatever the measure is, vertical, raised crosswalks, raised intersections, speed humps. And I just wanted to be crystal clear on this, from the town manager, who is our local traffic authority, down to me and down to the engineering division that I direct. We 100% support traffic calming. We look for opportunities for traffic calming when needed. I do want to point out, though, that they're not one size fits all. It does take a little bit of time and effort of my staff to review specific locations and come up with what works. And we will continue to do that, as was represented in these two reports. So I hope everybody understands that. There was some mention at a town council meeting that traffic calming or raised traffic calming is frowned upon. And that was the case many, many years ago, but we are in a different environment now, especially with Vision Zero. So that's all I wanted to state for the record. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dwayne, for that clarification on that. And again, thanks to you and your staff and for putting this all together. I'd advise anyone who is watching to tell your friends that those documents will be available online. It might save them having a question for someone and get them the information that that they'd like to have easily. So with that, if there's nothing else on the Vision Zero, thank you guys again so much. And I think we'll move on to item D, which is the Brownfield Grant Program.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and I will introduce Kristen Gorski, who heads up our Economic Development Division, and Kristen's going to provide us with an overview of the Connecticut Municipal Brownfield Grant Program. And as the council knows, we've had tremendous success in the past in applying for these grants and have been awarded 3 grants by the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to assist us with brownfield redevelopment programs, which have resulted in significant economic growth and development throughout the town. We do have 2 more grant applications that Kristen is currently working on, and will require the council to adopt a resolution at our February 25th council meeting. And with that said, through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn things over to Kristen. Thank you.
Good morning, Kristen Gorski, Economic Development Coordinator. Thank you so much to Town Manager Ledwith. Give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. So as Town Manager Ledwith mentioned, I just wanted to give an overview of the Brownfield remediation and development programs that are available through the state of Connecticut that we have been utilizing as a tool for the last several years. The council has been very supportive with the 3 applications that we have previously submitted and awards that we have received, but we've never gone through and done a formal overview of the program. So just wanted to provide a background and some additional information. Great. So there are a couple of different programs that are available through DECD, the Department of Economic and Community Development, under the Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development. These 4 programs, 2 are available to municipalities for remediation and limited assessment or environmental assessment only, and then 2 additional programs that are available, the Targeted Brownfield Development Loan Program, which is available to private entities, and then the Brownfield Area-Wide Revitalization Program, which is available to municipalities as well as Council of Governments and land banks. And so for any of the applications and projects that are applied for through any of these programs, you have to meet the definition of a brownfield in order to qualify. And so that definition means any abandoned or underutilized site where redevelopment, reuse, or expansion has not occurred due to the presence or potential presence of pollution in the buildings, soil, or groundwater that requires investigation or remediation before or in conjunction with the redevelopment, reuse, or expansion of the property. The Brownfield Municipal Remediation Grant Program, I want to touch on this, and then I wanted to also touch on the Targeted Loan Program. The Brownfield Municipal Grant Program, this is, as a whole, those 4 different tracks that I had just mentioned. This is a program that is very competitive. Every single round that is offered, and typically there are 2 rounds, one in the spring and then one in the fall that is offered. They receive over 20 applications, over a couple dozen applications, and then it is the job of DECD to go through a very, very thorough analysis process and identifying what are the best projects that meet the definition of brownfield and are the most bang for the buck in terms of providing financial assistance from the state of Connecticut. Additional program, so some of the program goals, as I had mentioned, meeting the definition of brownfield, but ultimately it is to support redevelopment projects in communities that will make a significant impact. Additional program goals include encouraging public-private partnerships. As you will see in one of my later slides, that is the track that we have taken thus far to work with a private entity to be a conduit to these funds, leveraging maximum amount of private funds to increase the economic impact of the state's investment, reactivating long stalled sites, and incentivizing job creation. All of these programs are made available through state statute. The original adoption of any of these programs was back in 2007, and it was expanded in 2013 to include the ability for municipalities to enact a public-private partnership and serve as a pass-through entity for private development. The Targeted Brownfield Development Loan Program, I did want to touch on this today. We don't need to participate in this, but I thought that it was important to be able to highlight. So while we primarily participate in the Brownfield Municipal Remediation Grant Program, there is also a track available for loans. So loans, and this program does not require the municipality to apply on the private developer's behalf. A private developer can apply for loans. So now the difference is this is a low interest loan. And when the municipality applies on behalf of the private developer as a public-private partnership, that is open as a grant or a loan. So this is a newer track under the Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development to add another tool in the toolbox to provide access to capital for these redevelopment projects. Okay, so more about what we typically utilize, and one of the things that I wanted to note is, as Town Manager Ledwith had mentioned, we are often utilizing this as a tool to be able to clean up sites, help to provide access to necessary funding to clean up those sites and make way for any sort of development that is really going to move the needle within our community. So now for the Brownfield Municipal Remediation Grant Program, there are only 3 entities that are available to be able to apply for grant funding. That is a municipality, a economic development agency, or a Connecticut Brownfield Land Bank. Any private entities are not available or eligible to be able to be an applicant to grant funding through any of these programs, but particularly through this program. Funding is available up to $4 million for the remediation and limited assessment grant, or up to $200,000 for the assessment only grant. So more about the criteria for funding. So talked a lot about how we utilize this as an incentive and have it as a tool in our toolbox to be able to help private developers clean up their site in advance of a redevelopment. But here are some of the things that the state looks at, that we look at prior to submitting an application, and how a application would ultimately be scored and whether it was worthy or not to be able to be funded through the program. So a couple of highlighting a couple of these, but not all of them. It has to be a shovel-ready project, which means that typically you have to have a site that has gone through the process to receive their land use entitlements, land use approvals. They do not have to have gone through any other local permitting. It is a question on the application, but it's very important that they have either received, or you can map out the path for them to quickly receive land use approvals on a project. It is very important that it is consistent with the town and the state's plan of conservation and development. It is very important that it supports the Department of Economic and Community Development and the state's economic and other policy initiatives, particularly if it supports affordable housing, particularly if it is a transit-oriented development project, if it helps to provide critical mass, if it's a really large project that might be in your downtown or your town core. And they also are really highly incentivizing through this application and through this program that you are leveraging a variety of different funds. So oftentimes on the applications that we submit, it is to be able to cover the full boat of remediation and cleanup funding. However, they look at a development pro forma to make sure that you have all of your bases covered and that you are leveraging a variety of different funding streams, not just DECD, not just a traditional lender for a mortgage, but you're really tapping into a variety of funders who are very supportive of helping you to execute your project. Eligible use of funding. So what the program allows for you to cover And a note is that in any of the grant programs or grant awards that we receive, this works on a reimbursement basis only. So, you know, when we receive a notice of award and then ultimately we go into a closing for that award and for the funding, we submit reimbursements. So the developer would pay for a certain amount of work. As that work gets done, they contact us and they provide documentation of all of these eligible use items that were agreed upon under the application. And then we package it, we submit it to the state, they review all the checks and balances, and then the town receives the funds, and then we pass through the funds to the private entity. So there's a lot of, I just wanted to mention that at the top because there is a lot of oversight and management, both on the town side as well as the state side, to make sure that these eligible uses are being requested appropriately. So these eligible uses that you can apply for and can be supported through the funding include assessment, remediation, abatement, hazardous materials and waste disposal. You can also apply for any long-term monitoring of the site, of the groundwater, any of the soils. You can cover some of the environmental consulting attorney fees, so on and so forth. Primarily what we have been requesting and been awarded for funding for the 3 projects that we actively have are typically the demolition of the existing structure, particularly because as based on when a lot of these structures were built, oftentimes in the 40s, 50s, 60s, there was a lot of contaminated materials that we just would not utilize in construction today. And they are considered hazardous or contaminated. So you need to work with a really highly skilled team in order to remove those materials from a building properly prior to taking down the existing structure. So it is definitely a dance and an effort to be able to take all of those materials out of the building prior to demolition, which is why the state allows for demolition to also be covered under eligible uses. Now, here are the 3 grants that we actively have in different rounds. So as I mentioned, there is typically a spring round and a fall round for applications. February is typically, March is typically when the spring round is, and then September, October is the fall round. So all 3 of these were fall rounds dating back to 2021. So as I had mentioned, this particular, or all of these particular programs have been in state statute since 2007, and then amended to allow for municipalities to apply on behalf of a private property or developer since 2013. We have only been utilizing this program since 2021, but it certainly has paid off in a very big way. So in round 14, we received an award for the Elmwood Lofts. That total is $953,000. So that is for the ultimate redevelopment of the former Puritan furniture site at 1051 to 1061 New Britain Avenue. That is one project that is currently working to finalize their capital structure, and we do expect to be able to close on that grant quite soon. Round 16, we were awarded a $998,000 grant for the Camelot at the former West Hartford Inn site. As you can all see from driving by, walking by, that that is a project that is very close to completion. I believe that they are aiming to open hopefully on May 1st, if not soon afterwards. So this is a really good example of where this program was extremely helpful to be able to move this forward. You know, there was a heavy amount of contamination in that building. As you can see, they demolished the former restaurant. And then, as they were working to construct and retrofit the former inn, there was a lot of those contaminated materials, asbestos, things like that, lead, that they needed to remove from the site prior to being able to move forward with the construction and the retrofitting. So this was a fantastic tool to be able to utilize to move forward 44 units of affordable housing. And then finally, under round 18, we have the L at North Main, which was a $660,000 grant. So this is for the remediation, abatement, and partial demolition of the former Aguda Sakim Synagogue on North Main Street, working with our partners at the West Hartford Housing Authority. Many of you were able to attend the groundbreaking a couple of weeks ago to be able to start that project. They are well underway with starting to clean up the site in advance of beginning construction of their 49 units of mixed income housing. And then, as Town Manager Ledwith had indicated, at the Town Council meeting next week, you will have 2 resolutions on the agenda. And this is for 2 additional applications that we are planning to submit as part of round 21. So the first is for the Jaden at 579 New Britain Avenue. Their request is not to exceed $688,000, and that is for the remediation, abatement, and demolition of the existing structure following the remediation of the 1.21 acre property. It will be redeveloped by Hexagon New Park LLC as a 70 unit mixed income, mixed use, transit oriented development, multifamily housing complex. It is proposed that 30% of the units, residential units, will be designated affordable. So this is a application that will be for the Brownfield remediation grant. And then consistent with the last 3 that you had seen, this is for the cleanup, no assessment. The assessment has already been done. They know what's contaminated. They know what they need to do in order to clean up the site in advance of construction. So that is consistent with what we have applied for and received in the past. Something new for us during this round is 240 Park Road, and this is for the Brownfield Municipal Remediation Assessment only grant program. So we have never applied for this before, but very excited. So the request is going to be $200,000 of our grant to support the environmental assessment of the 1.02 acre site located at 240 Park Road. This work will facilitate options for existing tenants to invest in the adaptive reuse of unused space located within the 44,000 square foot building. So this particular property, the former AC Peterson Farms milk plant, if anybody has ever gotten a chance to walk through, it is really a behemoth of a building. There is a lot, while it looks like there is a lot of activity from the street front, because we have Playhouse on Park, AC Peterson's, and then Cricket Press, who are fantastic tenants and businesses for the Park Road corridor. There is a significant portion of the building that you do not see from the street that is unutilized. So that is primarily where they used to be able to cook down the milk and be able to produce it in order to sell back in the day, 50, 60, 70 years ago, where the former ice cream manufacturing plant had been for a certain period of time. There is probably about half of the building that is unutilized. So Playhouse on Park is looking to hopefully expand at some point in the future. So being able to, and this is particularly into the second floor where the former ice cream manufacturing plant had been. So we know that there is some remediation and abatement that will need to happen in advance of them doing that expansion. However, we are unsure exactly what the contamination levels are, what will be found as part of that cleanup. So we are going to help them investigate. And then also we have been working with Cricket Press, who is interested in an expansion within the building as well. So this is, kind of best case scenario where we are utilizing this as a tool to understand what contamination exists within the building, and then hopefully help to be able to provide access to an understanding of what's going on, so that both of these really important businesses to Park Road can expand in the future. And that is all that I have. I am happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from council members? Councilor Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Christian, I think it's just a clarifying question on the Park Road, New Britain Avenue. Just wanted to know if that was a typo, because it says 579 New Britain Avenue and 579 New Park Avenue. So is it New Park or New Britain?
I apologize. It is New Park Avenue. That is a typo. You are correct.
Okay, thank you. That was it, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Kristen, for the presentation. I know that a good number of us here know or haven't been here that long, and I think this is the first presentation we've had about the Brownfield grants. Even though we know what they are, it was nice to see what's going on with different developments in the town. So thank you so much for that. And Mr. Town Manager, I don't know if you have anything else to say on that subject, or if you want to move to the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do appreciate Kristen's overview. And as I mentioned at the outset, we've been extremely successful in receiving these grants in the past with those 3 that Kristen highlighted, and with these 2 more, resulting in 5 significant developments or redevelopments throughout town. So continuing to drive our economic growth and development here in town. So outstanding. So thank you, Kristen. And I will, I'll jump right into the, and this one's just, I'll be super fast on this one. It's just a quick update on the, and Todd Dumais, our town planner, discussed the proposed amendment to chapter 177 of our zoning ordinance that would permit pool tables and accessory use in a restaurant. Our town planner has been working with our corporation counsel's office on finalizing that ordinance language specifically. And what we would do from a schedule perspective is we would bring this ordinance forward to the March 11th council meeting. And at that point, it would be referred to TPZ and then set for a public hearing with the council on April 8th. So that's just a quick update on the conversation that we started last month. Happy to answer any questions that you may have on that schedule.
Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, seeing none. Move on to our last agenda item, which is the ordinance on automated traffic enforcement.
Yes, and thank you. I know we've kept everyone pretty late today, and it was a very busy agenda, and this is a pretty meaty topic as well. And that is the use of automated traffic enforcement safety devices, which we commonly refer to as ATSDs. Just by way of history, and I'll try to move as quickly as I can through this summary. But back in 2023, Connecticut general statutes authorized the use of safety devices for both speed management and red light enforcement in cities and towns. And since the passing of this bill, the town has since applied for and was awarded 2 separate federal Safe Streets for All grants that Parker had highlighted in the Vision Zero annual report. And last month, you may recall, the council adopted a resolution appropriating the speed management pilot program portion of that grant, and that was $669,000. And we continue to work with the Federal Highway Administration on the $3.1 million Safe Streets for All grant. That grant included the red light management program. So we're now in the process of working with Corporation Counsel to draft an ordinance that would add ATSDs to Chapter 168 of our town code. And this would allow us to establish ATSDs in pedestrian safety zones, school zones, and then other roads throughout town that have a history of speed-related crashes or violations. And these would all be clearly defined in the ordinance. The ordinance would also outline citations and fines associated with someone exceeding the speed limit by 10 or more miles per hour. So if a device detects a violation of our traffic ordinance, a citation would be issued. And this citation would be mailed to the vehicle owner's address within 30 days of the violation. Our plan would include a 30-day warning period. So when we first established these cameras around town, and we'll talk more about this as we move through the next couple of months, but just as a quick overview, there will be a 30-day essentially grace period when we roll this plan out. So we'll set the cameras up. We'll have 15 different locations throughout town. And then anyone who exceeds the speed limit going through that camera would be issued a warning. After the 30-day window, then we would issue a fine not exceeding $50 for the first offense, and then $75 for each additional offense beyond that. We can also add a $15 electronic processing payment fee to that $50 or $75 fee as well, and those would be as well outlined in the ordinance as well. So the ordinance would be subject to a public hearing. So I would like to get this ordinance in front of CPED before we set it up for a public hearing. So if we were to receive the ordinance at the March 25th council meeting, we would then set that for a public hearing on April 8th. And that would be the same night that we would have the amusement devices public hearing. So we'd have both public hearings on the same night. And this ordinance would then become part of our ATESD plan, which we're working on now as well. And then we will submit our plan overall to the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And the Connecticut Department of Transportation would review our plan, hopefully approve our plan, and then issue that approval back to the town. We would then take our plan and submit it to the Federal Highway Administration for their approval as well. Here in West Hartford, our step includes the federal process because we are receiving a federal grant. So we do also have to have it approved by Federal Highway Administration. So Connecticut DOT is saying they have up to 60 days to review a plan. They've received a couple from around the state. They've turned them around really quickly. So we would expect that to happen here in West Hartford as well. And the Federal Highway Administration assures us that they'd be able to approve our plan around rather quickly as well. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of that ordinance, highlighting the specific definitions that would be in the ordinance itself. And as I said, we are working with Corporation Counsel to finalize this language. And we would have that back before the committee for a once-over before we set it for public hearing. So that was a rather quick, speedy summary of where we are right now, but happy to, through you, Madam Chair, take any questions that the committee had.
Are there any questions from our committee member? No? Are there questions from any other council member? No. Oh. Do you have a question? Okay.
All set.
Oh, I thought Councilor Cortez had a question. Sorry, I didn't see him. Okay, so that will come back to us and we'll be looking at having that public hearing on April the 8th, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so if there's nothing else on that, are there any communications that need to be presented?
We do not, Madam Chair, but really, I know this took up a lot of time this morning, but we really appreciate your patience as we move through a lot of very important topics. So thank you.
Okay, and no staff reports, or are we, okay, and no future agenda items. So I guess I will make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Okay.
And I second.
Okay. Everyone, whoops, I'm sorry, someone keeps texting me, I don't know. Okay, so we will end this meeting. Thanks for your time today. Sorry it went long, but we did get a lot of information. So thanks so much and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.